Welcome to the Osmo Early Bird Podcast. It's your old pal Emac coming to you once again with Adam Ship My Money Share as we're taking a look at the early games here. We're going for the first 6 on Saturday. The slate is spread out nicely. We've got a lone 1 o'clock game. We then have, 1, 2, 3, 2 o'clock games, a 3 o'clock game, 2 4 o'clock games. So that 2 through 4 is going to be the 6-game early/main slate. There's the lone outpost at 6:10 p.m. That is the New York Yankees in Tampa Bay. CC Sabathia taking on Undecided. We're guessing there's an opener going to be involved in that one. And then we have 2 7 o'clock games, 4 8 o'clock games, and 2 9 o'clock games. So we've got a robust 8-game late slate spread out very, very nicely. There's all sorts of early slates popping up just a little bit, or I should say early slates, sub-slates, but they have not backed them with some big tournaments yet, so we'll have to see. But you will get all of the content you need here on Osmo. And of course, on the Osmo Early Bird here, we're going to cover you for those first 6 games starting at 2 p.m. Eastern. There will be the DFS strategy show with myself and one Josh Engelman. Yes, he is making a rare Saturday appearance. That will be at 11 o'clock, new start time, because Josh has some stuff to do after the show. So we are going at 11. If your name is Sean V, definitely tune in. And if your name's not Sean V, definitely tune in. I got a surprise set up for everybody. Adam, how are you doing? Did you only do 2 shows on Friday, or did you get 3 in? Or is this technically your third?
This is my third, yeah.
All right, well, let's jump in without further ado. We'll hit this bad boy game by game here. Oh, goodness. Let me get to the right slate. Our first one here is going to be Detroit at Minnesota. We have Spencer Turnbull going against Michael Pineda. Detroit, not that great. Not a lot of power with them if your name is not Castellanos. Or who else is good with them, Adam? Is
Kristen
anybody?
Stewart.
Oh, Stewart's back.
Kristen
Is he back now from the injured list?
Yeah.
All right,
Yep.
so there's a chance. So you're saying there's a chance. Talk to me here.
Yeah.
What do you like from Detroit and Minnesota? A couple of AFC. Oh, my God. I was reading some NFL stuff as I'm watching the Legion of Doom completely dismantled, and it is no more with my Seattle Seahawks. They cut Doug Baldwin. That's over. It's a mess. It's a sad day in Seahawk Nation.
But you didn't even get you still didn't get the conference, though. It's the NFC North.
Well, that's the end. Oh, okay. Well,
Detroit and Minnesota still wouldn't be the AFC.
All right. Do you want to have some fun? Did you know that the Seahawks were in the AFC West up until they went into the NFC West? But their first season, they were actually in the NFC, I think it was Central. And they and Tampa Bay ended up switching spots their inaugural year in 1977. They were in different conferences than where they ended up for the next 20-plus years. But they switched that next year. There was some shenanigans and chicanery going on with the owners. But just wanted to throw that out there. And did you know that Louis and DeRoy Selman were the first and second round picks of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Brothers, if you didn't catch that one.
Did not know either of those things.
Well, it was like 12, 15 years before you were born. So
yeah,
you get a pass on this one, my friend. You get a pass. What do you got here today, present day, Detroit and Minnesota?
Got some interest in Pineda just because the pitching on the slate really leaves a lot to be desired. There's not a whole lot to feel good about. So some interest in him against a Detroit team that has plenty of strikeouts in their lineup and not a lot of good hitters. Pineda really has been disappointing so far this season, but he's also had a lot of tough matchups. He's faced Houston twice. He's faced the Yankees. He's faced Philadelphia. He's faced Cleveland. All those teams, pretty difficult strikeout matchups. He has 1 start against Detroit, 1 start against Toronto, the only 2 really favorable matchups that he's had. In that start against Detroit, he went 6 innings, struck out 5. In the start against Toronto, he was absolutely awful. There's no denying that he has not been good, but on this slate, I do have some interest in him against Detroit. If I'm looking to take hitters against him, it would be the power bats that we mentioned at the top, in particular with Kristen Stewart and Nick Castellanos, both in reasonably good spots against Pineda, who we know even when he was better than he is now would give up home runs. His velocity's down now, doesn't appear to have the stuff that he did when he was with the Yankees. So definitely interested in those two in particular. As far as Spencer Turnbull goes, I think he's a decent pitcher. I don't have intentions of paying $8,200 for him on DraftKings against this Minnesota lineup that I have a ton of respect for. I'd actually be more interested in going to the Minnesota bats. They're more reasonably priced than they were yesterday. Polanco's dropped $500 back down to $5,200. Rosario has gotten a little bit below the 5K point. So it's just a really high upside spot because while I think Turnbull is good enough that I don't normally target against him, if they can get to him early, they get into a weak Detroit bullpen that they can tack on a bunch of runs to. So interested in mostly just the Minnesota side of this game.
All right. And I do appreciate you actually, and this is in all honesty, not going all in on Miguel Cabrera, as I have seen here and there throughout the industry. This is his age 36 season. He has 147 plate appearances going into tonight's game. He has a grand total of 7 extra base hits, 1 home run, 14 RBI. So we'll give him the benefit of the doubt, multiply that by 4, and he would be on pace for 5 home runs and about 70 RBI. He is hitting 301, but at this point, Adam, he's pretty much a singles hitter.
Yeah, I mean, his expected numbers against right-handed pitching this season are better than his actual numbers, but they're still nothing great. He has an actual 292 WOBA and 0.036 ISO against right-handed pitching. His expected WOBA is 336 with a 150 expected ISO. So still not the Miguel Cabrera of old that we're accustomed to.
Yeah, and then with the DK, they still have Jorge Polanco priced at $5,200 for Saturday, Nelson Cruz at an even $5,000, Eddie Rosario at $4,900. Those would be the twins that you want, along with one Max Kepler if you're going to get Spencer Turnbull, but that does not feel like the best spot. We do have several games, so the popularity will be diffused, and Minnesota is checking in with a 5.4 earned projected run total. I'm just scrolling through. Toronto is at 5. The Angels, I'm sorry, Adam, are at 5.8 going against Dylan Bundy. But hey, Baltimore, Adam, 4.9. That's relatively impressive. We'll get to them soon enough. If you guys have not yet signed up to Awesemo, what are you waiting for? Use the promo code EARLYBIRD, all one word, and get 50% off any 1-month package. Throw on the add-on of the Fantasy Cruncher. You don't get the discount on that, but you can test it out. Well worth it. We've got a lot of videos, and of course we help each other out in the Slack channel on how to figure out what is going on. And as you know by now, we here at Awesemo subscribe to rolling with a lot more lineups in lower buy-ins. Keep your same volume, your same bankroll in play, but just dip down a level and get into some of these smaller contests, smaller fields, and your ROI will thank you tremendously. Moving on to our next game here, Adam, we have the Pittsburgh Pirates in St. Louis going against the Redbirds. It is going to be about 57 to 61 degrees at first pitch. We got about 60% humidity. It's overcast, but we don't have any rain situations except for Baltimore. But again, we'll get to that one soon enough. You've got Jordan Lyles going against Miles Michaelis, but as I've said many a time, and with you on the show, I prefer the Ricola pronunciation. Micolas. It's more fun to say. It's like Legolas if you're into the whole Hobbit and J.R. Tolkien series. Are you familiar with Lord of the Rings, Adam?
I mean, I know what it is. I didn't watch any of the movies, and I didn't read any of the books.
All right. Well, I read all the books more than once because, we didn't have VCRs and DVRs and all that back in the day. We had libraries, Adam. Libraries. And if we were in Mexico, we would call those bibliotecas.
Yeah.
What do you got for Jordan Miles and Mikolas in this one? And what the hell was going on with Gregory Polanco not starting on Friday night in the perfect matchup?
Yeah, no idea why Polanco didn't start on Friday night, but I assume he'll be back in the lineup against Michaelis here. And Michaelis is a decent pitcher. He doesn't give up a lot of runs. He doesn't get a lot of strikeouts. It's not a Pittsburgh team that has a ton of strikeouts in their lineup. Getting to some Michaelis if you're playing 150 lineups, probably makes sense just because there's only 12 pitchers to choose from, and most of them are worse pitchers than Michaelis. But if you're like hand building 1 or 2 lineups and you're just trying to get as much upside in as you can, I'm not sure that Michaelis is a part of that, just because he really doesn't have that much strikeout upside, and you basically need him to be efficient and go really deep into the game. When he does struggle, it's with left-handed power, and Pittsburgh does have some of that with Gregory Polanco, assuming he's back in the lineup. Josh Bell seems to be emerging as the hitter that everyone thought he was going to be when he first came up with Pittsburgh a couple of years ago, hitting for plenty of power this year. So those 2 guys would be the bats that I prefer against Michaelis, but I think there are better pitchers to pick on the slate than Michaelis. I would expect that he ends up being my probably 4th or 5th highest owned pitcher, but that I have, around 15-20% most likely.
And that makes sense. There's 3.8 implied run total here for the Pirates. Michaelis has a 3.9 xFIP, and that is coming across just shy of 1,000 batters. So relatively solid there. He only has a 17.5 combined strikeout rate, 3.8, which is a low walk rate, but what that does say is he lets a lot of balls go into play. Now, the intriguing thing about that is, as you mentioned with Bell, I mean, I used to see him sitting there 3rd, 4th, or 5th 2-3 years ago and be like, why the hell are you guys? He's a first baseman. He's a slap hitter. He's horrible. In his last 530 plate appearances against righties, he has a 200 ISO and a 365 WOBA. Pretty solid. He's definitely coming into his own, so he is someone to take note of. And then you, of course, have Colin Moran, hit or miss there, but it is a lefty going against Michaelis. And if you're going to go against him, as Adam mentioned, you do want to take the lefties, but he has not given up a ton of power. He has, in his 535 plate appearances against lefties, just a 150 ISO. Against righties, it is a tick shy of 100. That is pretty darn low. So considerations. We like the leverage here at Osmo. You got to check out the popularity percentages. Some of you may call them ownership percentages, but I'm going to go with popularity, damn it, Adam, because I'm going to make that one stick. Let's check out our next contest here. We have the Milwaukee Brewers in Chicago taking on the Cubs. No run line just yet. We are looking at a 50-degree first pitch temperature. That will be at 2:20 Eastern. There's a slight breeze coming in from right field at 5 to 7 miles an hour. And we have some intriguing pitchers here. Now, we have Cole Hamels at 9,700. Feels a little bit tough to go there, but we have Zach Davies at 7,900. Now, the one thing that you want to consider with DraftKings, and again, we focus a lot on DraftKings pitching here because we like the 2-pitcher sites, and it makes for yet another decision point. But I went back and was ready to take the Cubs against Zach Davies as I was writing up the Spotlight Hitters and Stacks articles tonight. But I can't do it, Adam. Zach Davies has actually been pretty damn effective. And I would like your take on this. Is this going to continue going forward? He's approaching a 1.1 whip, which is walks plus hitters divided by innings pitched, which means he has about 1.1 base runners per inning. So if anything goes sideways for him, it's not going to be that bad because there's chances are there's not going to be runners on base, and they're going to be the runners that count towards that 1.1 base runners per inning. What do you like here with Davies, and then expand out to Hamels?
Davies has always been a pretty mediocre pitcher. He has a career 4.25 xFIP. He doesn't allow a ton of runs. He also sucks for DFS because he doesn't strike out guys. For his career, he struck out 17.2% of hitters. He doesn't walk a lot of guys. He keeps guys off base. And so he's not that much fun to take hitters against. For his career, he has had 2 seasons. Last year, 1.09 home runs per 9, and in 2016, 1.1 home runs per 9. The only 2 times that he's allowed over 1 home run per 9 innings. And so far this year, he's not even close. So he just kind of gets outs and doesn't strike guys out. In against teams that are not expensive, I don't mind taking bats, but the Cubs are priced up here, and you're really paying a premium for them. It's not really a spot that I want to get to outside of maybe taking some shots at like Kyle Schwarber or Addison Russell toward the bottom of the order, just because they are cheap, and especially in the case of Schwarber, they have a lot of power. But I'm not looking to Davies either. His price tag has come up after his very good outing last time, but if you remember, that start was against probably the worst Mets lineup we'll see all season long. It was one of the worst lineups that I've seen for any team this season. And so he had a good start there, which wasn't surprising at all. Not many strikeouts in this Cubs lineup, much better hitters than he faced in that start. And again, his price tag came up. So not really interested in either side there. As far as Hamels goes, he's good. His price tags come up a bit. And it is a really scary matchup against Milwaukee. I actually have more interest in the Milwaukee bats here, even though Hamels has been good, because they are affordably priced, especially guys like Lorenzo Cain, Ryan Braun, that have power from the right side, but also have speed and can run on Hamels. Hamels has gotten better at holding runners than he was for most of his career. Having Wilson Contreras behind the plate certainly does not hurt in that regard either. But you would still expect Cain and Braun potentially to try and run. And even if they don't, they are cheap power bats. You have Jesus Aguilar at 3,500 against a lefty. I know he's been bad for most of the year, but it's still a really, really cheap price tag. Grandal, I prefer from the left side, but still 3,800, probably batting, fourth. It's just a cheap enough Milwaukee team where I'm more interested in them than I am in paying up for Hamels against them in a tough spot.
Yeah, and that's absolutely fair. And if you go over to Yahoo, which is one of the presenting sponsors here of the Early Bird podcast, check it out. If you go to any of my Spotlight Hitters articles, or on Fridays, we do a full breakdown of the Yahoo strategy on what you want to do with their pitching, and we give you 4 or 5 cheap hitters. Check that out. In the second paragraph, you're going to find the link that gets you into Yahoo. If you've not yet joined up, come in on that link, use the promo code AWESEMO, and get up to $30 with your first $30 or more deposits in Yahoo Sports reward points, which are just as good as cash and available for immediate use to enter into any contest. Hamels over there is 48. Now, pitching there, the lowest pitchers you'll get will be at 25. So generally, that's somebody that gets called up or is scuffling badly, etc. The highest you'll ever see the pitchers are usually somewhere between 60 and 62, and that would be Jake DeGrom, Trevor Bauer, Max Scherzer, Chris Sale, if they're at the apex of their powers, on a nice little 2-3 game streak and going against a weak opponent. Otherwise, you're going to have to make some decision points here, which is great because the best thing about Yahoo, there is no automatic upload. There is no CSV upload, and their biggest contests cap out at 10 entries per gamer, which means the apex predators are not going to be flooding things, and you can oftentimes find some pricing nuances, shall we say, that can help you out because you're not able to lift and shift your player pool from DraftKings or FanDuel over there. Now, the analysis holds, but you will be able to find and arbitrage some value here and there. There will be some plays that you think are great on some of the sites. They will be overpriced on Yahoo, but more often than not, you will be able to find some sneaky players here and there that can help you get in that perfect lineup. You can stack as many as 6 players on the offense per team, but with their pricing and position requirements, that's not always going to be the case. And they do have a different scoring than DraftKings and FanDuel, which slightly increases individual hitters and does not encourage stacking quite as much. So it's a lot of fun over there, and it's a good time. And you're, again, not going to face those super duper sharks. Moving on here, Adam, we have, let's see, Ivan Nova going against Marcus Stroman. That would be the Chicago White Sox taking on the Toronto Blue Jays. This is in the Rogers Center. We have a 4.1 implied total for the White Sox, a 5 implied run total there for the Blue Jays. Do you think the Blue Jays have the offense that can get it done against Nova?
Blue Jays offense sucks.
It's horrible.
Yeah, they barely are getting it or got it done against Dylan Covey last night. Really, I mean, they were pretty bad. It was just a 3-run homer from Grichuk and then solo shot from Hernandez, but they're bad. Nova's not bad against right-handed hitters. He is bad against lefties. I like Justin Smoke, and then you get nice price tags on Vlad Guerrero and Randall Grichuk and Hernandez for how much power they have, but definitely prefer left-handed bats against Nova, and the only really good left-handed bats in the lineup are both the first baseman with Smoke and then Tellez, even though we don't have the track record on Tellez that we do with Smoke.
All right, talk to me a little bit here about Mr. Stroman. He is someone that gets it done, I think is the best way to say it. He has been solid in certain situations, and it seems like we are a boom or bust opponent here with the White Sox. Jose Abreu is dangerous, as is Yonder Alonso. But after that, unless you're talking about Tim Anderson going against a lefty or Luis Garcia getting lucky, this doesn't seem like the place where we want to take the Chi Sox. How are you feeling about Stroman as a potential SP2 at 8,000 even on DraftKings?
I really, 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 really like Stroman a lot for a couple of reasons. For one, the White Sox strike out a lot. We know that. For two, Stroman is just a good pitcher. And on the slate, there's not that many pitchers that you would call good. And he is the most reasonably priced because he's cheaper than Michaelis and Hamels and obviously Trevor Bauer. So he has that working for him. But I also think that his strikeout numbers are going to improve. So first of all, this season, he's thrown his slider to right-handed hitters 42.7% of the time. He's thrown it to left-handed hitters 34% of the time. By comparison, he threw it to lefties 24% of the time last year. He threw it to righties 37%. So he's up the usage rate on both of those pitches. But in his last couple of games, the most recent coming against Minnesota, he actually threw his slider 47.5% of the time against left-handed hitters. The start before that, he threw it 37.8% of the time. So we're seeing him throw it even more over his last couple of starts. It hasn't translated into strikeouts, but if you look at the teams he's faced, Minnesota in his last start, very difficult team to strike out. Angels the start before that, hardest team in baseball to strike out. Faced the Oakland Athletics in back-to-back starts prior to that. Oakland has not been an easy team to strike out, but he had more swinging strikes against them at least. Faced Tampa Bay, difficult team to strike out. Faced Cleveland, difficult team to strike out. So really the only two favorable – Baltimore hasn't even been easy to strike out this year. So really opening day against the Tigers was his only really favorable strikeout matchup of the season. And I think that there's probably going to be a tendency to just completely overlook the fact that he is taking, I think, at least a more strikeout-oriented approach this season with his pitch mix because it hasn't translated into his numbers just because of the teams that he's faced. So all that, like worst-case scenario, you're getting a good pitcher at a reasonable price tag against the White Sox. But I really think that Stroman is going to take advantage of good strikeout matchups more frequently this season than he has in the past.
Yeah, and that's something that's fair to say. So if we look at the White Sox, they strike out at 25.2% of the time with their current active roster against righties. That is number 6 overall in the league. The rest of their numbers are essentially middle of the road here from WRC Plus, which is above 100, but just barely, but that's still middle of the road. And then they have about a 180 ISO on the season, which means they're okay with power, but that's more in the doubles and not home runs range. So I do like the call out there for Stroman. What do you think about anybody at all going against Nova? He seems to absorb a lot of punishment, disappoints us more often than not, and this is not the most power-packed offense. And when is Vlad Guerrero Jr. going to get his first home run? I thought we were shining up his bust to get it there in Cooperstown. Does not seem to be the case, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, I like left-handed power the most against Nova. So again, Smoke and Tellez, the two that are the best. Then you just get upside to cheap price points in Guerrero and Grichuk, and to a lesser extent Teoscar Hernandez. But it's not that appealing just because Toronto is not that good.
All right, let's talk about our next game here, near and dear to your heart as we head into the 4 o'clock games. It is the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. They are up in Camden Yards taking on the batters of Birdland. We have Matt Harvey, the righty, going against Dylan Bundy, also a righty. A shocking 5.8 implied run total so far for the Halos. We have a equally shocking 4.9 implied run total for the Orioles. So let's step back just for a moment here. Let's focus only on the pitchers. Harvey getting by on Guile, just not there anymore. Not there, but he is 6,100, so he's definitely going to be in consideration as an SP2. I'm actually, and I wish, I don't have to wish, I'm hoping Shohei Ohtani is not going to be in the lineup on Saturday afternoon against Dylan Bundy, because I am actually willing to start to consider Dylan Bundy at 7,400 as an SP2. What are you doing with the hurlers in this game, Adam?
It's tough. Bundy has better strikeout stuff than his price tag, but he's facing an Angels team that strikes out less than every team in the league, and he is in Camden Yards, and he does give up a lot of home runs. It's a really scary spot for him. His numbers this year are actually kind of weird because last year it was basically play lefties against him. And if he was facing a right-handed heavy team, you could roster him because he'd get a ton of swings and misses and gave up less power to righties. This year, he's actually doing a better job against lefties because he's doubled his changeup usage, and it's been a very, very effective pitch for him with a 22% swinging strike percentage and just a .064 xISO allowed. But he's just getting absolutely lit up by righties on his fastball, his slider, his changeup. Anything he throws to them is just getting absolutely blasted. He's still getting a 17.4% swinging strike percentage against righties, but also a 300 or 296 xISO allowed. So really just boom or bust. But against the Angels, I really don't know how much boom there is because they just don't strike out. So I'm more inclined to go with the Angels here, especially because of how much I like Marcus Stroman at that same price point.
Okay, and that's absolutely fair. And then when Adam was saying the Angels just don't strike out, they actually don't. They have the lowest strikeout percentage in the league against righties amongst their active players at 14.6%. The next lowest teams are the Astros at 18.2 and the Dodgers at 18.9. If we flip it over to lefties, oh wait, the Angels still have the best strikeout or lowest strikeout percentage at 13.4. And then we're looking at the Athletics, surprisingly, the Athletics at 17.4, and then the Braves at 18.3. Good God, Adam, is the plate discipline of Mike Trout rubbing off on people?
I mean, the last few years, they haven't been a high strikeout team, but now it's, even more so. Like you get with Lucroy in the lineup, he's another guy that doesn't strike out at all. Pujols doesn't really strike out. Simmons doesn't strike out. Ohtani will strike out some, but he's also a phenomenal hitter. It's just a really annoying line. It's like facing Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, both really good hitters, and then a lineup full of Eric Sogard.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, so just throwing out Tommy La Stella, 11% in his last 253 at-bats. Andrelton Simmons, 7.8% in his last 520 at-bats. Brian Goodwin, oh, good God, 28%. That's not horrible. Plus, he has a walk rate nearing 10. Cole Calhoun, you know what? He's been better since he did his 5-game stint in the minors last year. As you mentioned, Lucroy. And even Justin Bour, well, he strikes out 25% of the time. He is the best other than Mike Trout at taking walks. He's at 14% walk rate over his last 435 at-bats against righties. That is rather impressive, Adam. Goodness. I love baseball. So much nuance and so much ill-conceived, what do we think? Ill-conceived strategies, thoughts, approaches, etc. Many ways to win, even more to lose. But we're going to try to help you guys find those ways to win. Last game here on our robust 2 to 4 p.m. slate Eastern Time contest games. We have Trevor Bauer going against Oakland in it's not O.co anymore, Adam. I believe I looked this up, so I'm going by memory, but I think that sponsorship ran out 2 seasons ago, and I believe it is the Oakland Alameda Coliseum in I'll have to look that up, but yeah, it's some oddity.
Isn't that what it was before?
Well, it was before it was O.co, but now there's no sponsor.
Was O.co a sponsor, or is it short for Oakland Coliseum?
Oh, I always thought it was for Overstock.com, which is down there in the Bay Area.
No, I'm pretty sure it's just Oakland Coliseum.
Oh, Adam, look at that, teaching me things. We'll have to double check that. But we have a wounded Chris Davis who's been listed as potentially being in the lineup for the last, 5 days and not coming in. He does have a couple pinch hit appearances, but he's dealing with a sore hip. You have Matt Olson, who's finally back off the DL after getting hurt in that Japan series against the Mariners with a broken hamate bone. The one thing you want to remember about the hamate bone, that's that little inconsequential bone that is at the bottom of your hand, just before your pinky finger. So down there on, I don't know, it's not your wrist, but I guess it's your hand. The one thing it does, sort of saps powers. I believe in that, Adam. What do you think about the hamate bone issue there with Matt Olson and with Chris Davis? Yikes. I don't know if he's in. I'm kind of hoping he's in it at a halfway percentage because I really am considering Trevor Bauer here as the top pitcher. But first, let's focus on the Athletics hitters.
I'm not really looking to take ace hitters against Bauer unless it's for leverage reasons. He hasn't been good this year by his standards of, certainly a 389 xFIP, compared to 314 last year. So far, been disappointing, at least for me, because I really, really like Bauer. I believe in his stuff a lot, and he hasn't taken a step forward this year like I expected him to. Walk rate is up. Strikeouts are still there. I think that he'll be better from this point forward than he has been to this point. So I'm still not really looking to get to Oakland bats unless it's just because it's a 6-game slate and Bauer is going to have a ton of ownership. But even then, Oakland does concern me right now because you either don't have Davis in the lineup or you do have Davis in the lineup, but you don't know if he's going to finish the game. He was in the lineup a few days ago and then scratched before the game started, then was in the lineup the next day and left halfway through. So there's risk there. And then we don't know how Matt Olson is going to be in the short term coming back from his injury. So it's just a kind of risky and ugly lineup right now in a tough matchup for Oakland.
All right. Well, let me give a few thoughts here on Aaron Brooks. No, that is not the Aaron Brooks that played basketball at the University of Oregon and then in the NBA for 8 or 9 years. It's just not the Aaron Brooks that was the quarterback there for the Saints or the Oakland Raiders. Adam, it is Aaron Brooks, the pitcher. And if you see a picture of Aaron Brooks, the pitcher, you will realize there should be no confusion. Now, what I do want to call out is Brooks is 29 years old, and he's managed just 92 innings so far in the bigs. He has a 7.3 ERA with a 1.6 whip. He's allowed 8 home runs in his last 5 starts. That's 25 innings, but he has just 19 strikeouts. So, yeah, I'm thinking we're going with Cleveland here. Since popping back up with the big club last season, so 2018, he has faced combined 144 batters, so lefties and righties. He's allowing a 240 isolated power with nearly a 40% hard hit rate and a 41% fly ball rate. Adam, I think we're looking to Cleveland in this one. I feel like we should watch Major League while we're making our lineups on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, really, really appealing price points for them too. The ballpark isn't good, in Oakland, obviously, but that's made up for by, looking at their prices on DraftKings with 4,200 Lindor, 4K flat for Ramirez, 3,200 for Kipnis, 3,200 for Gonzalez. Like, this team is essentially free. You'll be able to either get Trevor Bauer, like you can stack Cleveland with Trevor Bauer and probably Stroman and like decent one-offs. It's not going to be tough. And Brooks has been hit hard so far this season. To lefties, allowing a 406 expected WOBA and a 258 expected ISO. Numbers to righties, not much better, especially in the power department. So it's a good spot. It's really cheap price tags. And, the only thing that works against Cleveland is the park.
Yeah, and when you say the park works against them, let's expand on that just a little bit. It's the gigantic, and wait for it, expanded foul ball territory, which extends wider than most on both the first base and third base line, and then behind those lines towards the backstop. So what happens is you get a lot more pop-ups that end up being caught. So while it suppresses strikeouts, as some luminaries in the DFS world will say, the reason is it's because they're still getting the same amount of outs. It's just not via strikeout. So while that does not necessarily help your pitcher from a fantasy points perspective, it does give your pitcher over the course of an entire season going against Oakland in Oakland O.co. It gives them a better chance of maybe extending by 2 or 3 outs, which is, nearly a full inning. So that's the trade-off there. So again, this is not like a giant park like Coors. It's not like AT&T or whatever, Oracle Park in San Francisco. It's not like T-Mobile Park, formerly Safeco Field, etc. But it's a different park, which if you're watching the game, it's kind of interesting because you're like, oh yeah, my guy popped it up. And then you're watching the catcher or the first baseman or third baseman running and leaning over into the stands and catching what should have been in the 20th row in any other stadium. So that's what they mean, right, Adam? I mean, that's more or less the also plain experience or explanation of what's going on.
Yeah, it also suppresses home runs. So it does
that. It's cooler. We have the marine layer. It's usually nice.
It's not a favorable park to hit it.
Yeah. Yeah, but I wanted to point. I hate when they say, "Oh, it suppresses strikeouts." Well, there's a reason why. It's a trade-off. It does not suppress outs. It suppresses strikeouts. So just throwing that out there. Any final thoughts as we let our dear listeners head on to the rest of their Saturday, Adam?
No, that's it for me.
All right, so we've got again, at 11 o'clock promptly, the DFS strategy show. You will get live before lock at 6 o'clock going over the late games. That will be myself and Chris Spags. And then you will get the deep dive from Adam. That's going to be behind the paywall. Check it out. If you have not yet signed up, use the promo code EARLYBIRD, all one word, for 50% off any 1 month package. And we have a very reasonable rate for the weekly package. Check that out. You get the full Slack channel and all the good stuff with that. So without further ado, we're going to get on out of here. You can follow Adam on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. I am at EmacDFS. And of course, it is Osmo_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.